They say towns don't just vanish. Houses may be abandoned, families may leave, communities may crumble over time, but they don't simply disappear. Yet tucked deep in the Appalachian Mountains, there was once a settlement that seemed destined to grow and thrive. It had homes, a schoolhouse, a church, a general store. Families lived there. Children played in the dirt roads. Farmers tilled the fields. And then, overnight, it was gone. Every man, woman, and child who called the place home simply vanished, leaving behind only silent buildings, unfinished meals, and a haunting emptiness that could never be explained. The town's name was Ravens Hollow. Today, you won't find it on any map. Most history books don't mention it. It has been erased, almost as if someone or something wanted it forgotten. But scraps of newspaper clippings, fragments of personal journals, and the whispered memories of descendants paint a darker picture. Because Ravens Hollow didn't just fade away. According to those who dared to investigate, the people of this town may have been swallowed by something far more sinister. Tonight, we will uncover what little is left of their story and why some say Ravens Hollow was never meant to exist in the first place. The settlement of Ravens Hollow was founded in the early 1800s by a group of pioneers who sought isolation from the growing industrial world. They were devout, hardworking, and desperate for land where they could build their own future. By all accounts, the valley they chose was breathtaking. Towering pines enclosed the settlement, a narrow river cut through the hills, and the soil was fertile. It seemed perfect. But from the very beginning, there were signs that something wasn't right. The land was littered with unusual stone formations, stacked in deliberate patterns, though no native tribe in the region claimed them. Hunters often returned empty-handed, reporting the woods to be eerily silent, and at night, strange echoes would carry through the valley, as if a great bell was being rung from somewhere deep within the forest. The settlers dismissed these events at first, blaming fatigue or imagination, but their journals tell a different story. In 1859, a farmer plowing a new field struck something hard beneath the soil. At first he thought it was a rock, but as the dirt fell away, he uncovered a skull, elongated, with deep grooves carved into its surface. More bones were found nearby, twisted and deformed, unlike any normal human remains. The town's preacher declared them relics of demons, buried long ago. The townsfolk panicked, demanding the bones be reburied immediately. But not everyone agreed. A small group of settlers believed the bones were a sign of something ancient and powerful tied to the valley. They began gathering in secret, holding strange midnight meetings near the river, chanting words no one else understood. And soon the town was divided. Those who wanted to leave the valley altogether, and those who insisted the land held a destiny for them. What happened next is pieced together only from scattered accounts. One cold autumn evening in 1862, smoke was seen rising from Ravens Hollow. Nearby travelers reported hearing frantic church bells ringing in the distance, as if warning of fire or invasion. But when a group finally reached the town the next day, they found something far worse. The streets were empty. Doors swung open in the wind. Meals sat untouched on tables, as though families had vanished in the middle of supper. No bodies were ever found. No signs of struggle, just silence. The only clue was a symbol carved into the wooden beams of the church, a jagged spiral with branching lines, identical to markings found on the unearthed bones years before. From that night forward, Ravens Hollow was abandoned. Over the decades, Ravens Hollow became a cautionary tale told in hushed tones. Maps were redrawn, conveniently leaving out the settlement's location. Official records of the town disappeared. By the early 1900s, most people believed it had never existed at all, but some kept the memory alive. Descendants of nearby families whispered that their grandparents had seen lights flickering in the valley long after the disappearance. Others claimed shadowy figures watched them from the tree line whenever they drew near the area. The land was cursed, they said, and those who entered would never return. In 1998, a researcher submitted a Freedom of Information Act request, asking for any records the government held on Ravens Hollow. Months later, he received an envelope. Nearly every page was redacted, but one chilling line remained. Incident classified. Site deemed contaminated. Civilian entry prohibited. Contaminated with what? No explanation was given. Though the government files remained heavily redacted, rumors persisted. Locals spoke of unusual activity in the valleys surrounding Ravens Hollow, and a growing number of adventurers, historians, and curiosity seekers found themselves drawn to the abandoned territory, despite warnings. The first notable modern exploration occurred in 1962, led by a pair of university historians, Dr. Samuel Whitaker and his assistant, Eleanor Price. They had become obsessed with tracing forgotten towns in Appalachia. When they stumbled upon references to Ravens Hollow in old newspapers, their curiosity became obsession. They arrived in late September, armed with maps that only vaguely marked the old river bends and ridgelines. According to Dr. Whitaker's handwritten notes, they reached the valley at dusk, the sun dipping behind thick forested ridges. The air was unusually still, he wrote. No birds called. Even the wind seemed to avoid the hollow. It was as if the valley itself were holding its breath. They spent the night in what remained of an old stone cabin. The logs were blackened with age. Some collapsed entirely. The air smelled of damp earth and decay. By midnight, Eleanor reported hearing faint whispers outside the cabin. At first, she assumed it was the wind, but the whispers grew louder, forming words she could almost make out. She wrote, "It is calling my name. I know it is not wind. I know it is not human. I can feel its eyes." Whitaker dismissed her fears as fatigue, but the unease persisted. The next morning, they explored the ruins deeper into the valley. Foundations of homes were still visible. Scattered tools lay half-buried in dirt, and rusted implements hinted at the lives that had once been lived. Then they found something truly disturbing. While examining a collapsed building at the edge of the valley, Whitaker's foot broke through what appeared to be a weak floor. Below, they discovered a hidden cavity, a shallow chamber carved into the earth beneath the foundation. Inside were remnants of human life, skeletal fragments, small wooden toys, and objects that looked deliberately placed. There were stone carvings, jagged spirals, and angular lines identical to those previously found in 1859. The most unsettling feature was a low, narrow passage that seemed to lead further underground. Whitaker attempted to follow it, flashlight in hand, but Eleanor refused to enter. "Something is waiting down there," she said. "I can feel it." Whitaker recorded his findings, marking the location on his maps, but never returned to explore further. Years later, his notes would become a source for urban legends, describing a city beneath a city and whispering shadows that moved independently of the wind. In 1974, another group of explorers stumbled upon an even stranger phenomenon. 3 hikers reported encountering figures in the valley they called lantern keepers. These silhouettes were human-shaped, but unusually tall, always holding lanterns that glowed faintly, though they emitted no heat or light visible from a distance. The hikers followed the figures at night, only to lose them in clearings. Sometimes the lanterns would vanish altogether, then reappear at a different ridge, guiding them deeper into the forest. The group became disoriented. Time seemed fractured. Hours felt like minutes, and minutes stretched into eternity. One hiker recalled, "I swear I saw faces in the trees, faces staring down at me with empty eyes. The lanterns floated ahead, but the path changed beneath my feet. We could not leave, not until the first light of dawn, and even then, the valley seemed to shift behind us, erasing the route we had taken." Among the fragments discovered in abandoned cabins, one diary stood out. Its author, a young boy named Thomas Eldridge, chronicled the final years of Ravens Hollow with increasing dread. "The man in the woods comes every night. He whispers to the children. We cannot sleep. Mother covers our ears, but I can still hear it. It says our names and shows us the shapes in the shadows. They are coming for us. I don't know who will be left by winter." Pages later, he described gatherings in the forest, townsfolk congregating around bonfires, chanting in unrecognizable tongues, eyes glazed, faces slack. "I saw the preacher there too. His voice was not his own. He raised his hands to the sky, and the symbols appeared in the smoke. They are watching. They know we are here. I think it is too late." The final entries were smudged with water or tears, barely legible. "We leave at night. If you find this, stay away. They are patient. They wait in the hollow. The man in the trees, he takes them, and one day they will take us all." Multiple accounts across decades describe unusual behavior of the forest itself. trees leaning inward, seemingly growing overnight, trails that vanish in strange light patterns. Local hunters reported feeling watched while inside the hollow, noting that wildlife would avoid certain clearings entirely. In 1981, a forestry researcher noted a cluster of trees that appeared to be hundreds of years old, but were encroaching rapidly over a small meadow where the town school once stood. Soil samples revealed unusual mineral composition, metallic traces that defied natural explanation. Satellite imagery from the 1980s showed strange anomalies in the valley, dark patches with geometric shapes, sharply contrasting with surrounding vegetation. Analysts at the time dismissed it as photographic error, but conspiracy theorists suggested it was evidence of ongoing activity in the hollow. Visitors reported more than visual anomalies. Sounds of bells, faint music, even indistinct conversations were heard in areas where no human activity occurred. Some claimed to see apparitions of children running along abandoned paths or fleeting glimpses of shadowy figures observing from the tree line. A camper in 1990 wrote in a survivalist forum, "I set up my tent in a clearing, thinking it was safe. At midnight, I heard soft singing. I looked out. No one was there, yet the trees swayed as though in response. The ground beneath my feet felt hollow. By morning, my compass spun wildly, and my GPS showed I had moved miles in minutes. I left immediately. The hollow, it doesn't want to be found." In 1995, a team of paranormal investigators reported photographing unusual lights over the valley at dusk. The lights appeared to hover above the ruins in slow arcs, then abruptly vanished. The team documented faint electromagnetic anomalies. Their equipment malfunctioned intermittently. One investigator recounted, "We saw what looked like figures moving in the distance, tall, pale, with an unnatural gait. They paused as if watching us, then disappeared. The lights, they were not lanterns or fire. They were something else, something alive." Through decades of stories, diaries, photographs, and first-hand accounts, a terrifying pattern emerges. Raven's Hollow is not simply abandoned. It is actively hidden, whether by natural forces, human intervention, or something far beyond comprehension. Symbols appear repeatedly: the jagged spiral, carved into wood, etched into stone, smudged into soil. The man in the woods, first recorded in Thomas Eldridge's diary, is a recurring presence. Time behaves differently inside the hollow. Visitors lose track of hours or days. Some vanish completely. Trees and paths shift inexplicably, erasing any attempt to map the area. The more people search, the more evidence suggests that Raven's Hollow is a locus of otherworldly influence, a place where reality bends, and those who enter may never return. Local residents have their own unrecorded stories. Hunters avoid the valley entirely, and hikers speak of a compulsion, a sense that something alive is observing, judging, and ultimately deciding who may leave. One elderly woman recalled seeing her father leave for the hollow as a boy, never to return. She said, "It calls to people. Some hear it in dreams, some hear it while walking the trails. And if you answer, if you follow the sound, you don't come back." In 2003, a man named David Harper went missing while hiking near the Appalachian Range. According to his friends, he was obsessed with the legend of Raven's Hollow and had spoken often about trying to find it. When search teams went looking, they discovered his gear scattered in a clearing. His camera was intact, containing one final photo, a blurry image of what appeared to be a steeple rising from behind the trees. There was no church in that area. David Harper was never seen again. Those who claim to have wandered close to the valley describe unnerving sensations. Time feels distorted. Watches stop working. Compasses spin endlessly. Some hear the faint ringing of a bell that grows louder the deeper they go. Others report laughter, children's laughter, coming from the woods, though no one is ever there. One camper awoke to find a jagged spiral carved into the dirt just outside his tent. He packed his things and never returned to the mountains again. So what truly happened to Raven's Hollow? Some believe it was disease or famine, that the settlers fled and nature reclaimed what was left. Others argue that people succumbed to mass hysteria, driven mad by isolation. But the darker theories refuse to die. Some say the valley is a thin place, where the barrier between our world and another is weak. That when the settlers unearth the bones, they awaken something waiting beneath the soil. Others insist the entire town was taken, not destroyed, but pulled into another dimension, trapped forever in the echo of their final night. And the most chilling belief of all, that Raven's Hollow still exists, hidden from us, drawing in those who wander too close. In 2017, an urban explorer claimed online that he had found the ruins of Raven's Hollow. He uploaded one shaky video showing collapsed stone foundations, rotting wood, and what appeared to be a rusted church bell lying in the dirt. The video was deleted within hours. His account vanished. No one has heard from him since. Maybe Raven's Hollow was just another forgotten settlement swallowed by time. Maybe the truth was erased to protect us from something too large to understand. Or maybe it was never abandoned at all. If you ever find yourself walking the Appalachian trails and you hear a faint bell ringing in the distance, don't follow it. Don't look for the road that isn't on any map, because once you enter Raven's Hollow, you may never come back.